The air in Ouagadougou hangs thick, not with the smoke of battle, but with something far more unsettling: anticipation. The kind that seeps through every alley, every corridor of power, just before history changes course. And at the heart of it stands Ibrahim Traoré, the youngest president in the world, a man whose defiance has made him both a symbol and a target. Across the global stage, whispers grow louder. A phrase echoes through classified channels and encrypted briefings. Plan B. Simple words, yet their meaning carries the weight of something grim. Plan B is not diplomacy. It's not dialogue. It's the final card nations play when every other move has failed. Sanctions ignored. Propaganda fading. Covert pressure losing effect. And so, behind the polished language of diplomacy, powerful actors are drafting something new. A playbook designed not to persuade, but to neutralize. Traoré senses it. He's seen this story before. Leaders who dared to dream of true sovereignty, only to vanish before their visions could take root. But this time he vows, the ending will be different. Security in the capital tightens. Intelligence networks are reshaped. New alliances bloom quietly across the Sahel. Yet beneath every decision lies a single unspoken question. Can a continent claim its destiny without asking permission? Because this isn't just about one man or one nation. It's about the very idea that Africa can rise on its own terms. And if Plan B is real, if it's already in motion, then what's under threat is not only Burkina Faso's sovereignty, but Africa's right to stand tall without approval from anyone. The first whispers come like ghosts in the static. Plan B has been activated. 3 words, buried deep within an intercepted cable, enough to shift the mood of an entire government. The tone of every briefing changes overnight. What sanctions and media pressure couldn't accomplish, something darker is now preparing to attempt. History, after all, has shown the pattern. When persuasion fails, elimination follows. Intelligence analysts list possible scenarios. Some fear covert operations disguised as extremist attacks, chaos that looks organic but isn't. Others warn of mysterious accidents, unexpected collapses, or internal fractures so precise they could only have been engineered. But the most chilling threat of all is betrayal, not from enemies, but from within. A quiet fracture in loyalty, a hand turned against its own leader. It's a formula history knows too well. Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, both men who challenged the invisible architecture of global control, and both silenced before their dreams could fully breathe. That's why this moment feels different. Because the continent remembers. From Bamako to Niamey, from Conakry to Harare, a current of defiance is building. And those behind Plan B know it. They understand that if Burkina Faso holds its ground, others will follow. So the pressure mounts, fast, quiet, surgical. The goal, to break one link before the entire chain strengthens. But Traoré isn't waiting to be a victim. Just past midnight, without speeches or ceremony, an encrypted order flashes across the command network. Code Amber activate. In minutes, the city shifts gears. Patrol routes double. Checkpoints multiply. Air defense monitors flicker to life. Radios go silent as secure lines take over. A stillness settles over Ouagadougou. The stillness of a nation preparing to defend itself, not from invasion, but from invisibility. To the public, life appears unchanged. Markets open. Children go to school. But behind the palace walls, a doctrine of resilience has quietly taken form. It has 3 pillars: the triple shield, the physical shield. Elite forces now circle the presidency in shifting patterns. Convoys never repeat routes. Units rotate under unpredictable schedules. Even food and supply trucks face biometric clearance twice daily. Every movement is designed to make the unthinkable impossible. The information shield, a war against infiltration. Sensitive networks have been stripped of foreign hardware. Encryption resets hourly. Advisors from abroad have been reassigned. Communication leaks, once routine, are now traceable within seconds. The days of unseen eyes and ears embedded inside the state are closing fast. The legitimacy shield, the most powerful of all. Traoré reframes the struggle not as an attack on himself, but on national sovereignty. If they come for me, he tells his cabinet, they come for Burkina Faso. It's a message designed to change the game, because now, any strike against the presidency risks igniting not fear, but unity. Observers estimate the new defense measures cost nearly $50 million, a steep price for one of the world's poorest nations. But as one aide quietly remarked, the price of sovereignty is always cheaper than the cost of losing it. In the quiet hours before dawn, a young soldier guarding the palace reportedly whispered to his comrade, "They plan in the dark, but we guard the dawn." And in those words lay something far greater than loyalty. It was a statement of purpose, a declaration that the battle for independence was no longer fought with borders and bullets, but with information, endurance, and faith. Across Africa, the moment resonates. Commentators call it the new non-alignment. Analysts call it dangerous. But to millions watching across the Sahel, it feels like justice, long overdue. And yet, one question remains. Can any shield, no matter how strong, withstand a global system built to preserve itself? Or is Code Amber merely the opening move in a confrontation far greater than anyone yet imagines? Because what's unfolding in Ouagadougou is not chaos, it's clarity. They call it destabilization, but the truth is simpler. It's resistance. Resistance not from rebels or insurgents, but from a world order afraid of losing control. Ibrahim Traoré is not just leading a country. He's unsettling an entire equation of power. His reforms have already rewritten the rules. The first blow, nationalizing Burkina Faso's gold mines, reclaimed billions once funneled abroad and redirected them into local schools, water systems, and agricultural programs. A move that proved an uncomfortable truth. Africa can govern its own wealth. The second, restructuring the military, shattered decades of dependency. Old ties dissolved. New alliances took shape. Joint drills with neighboring Sahel nations, strategic coordination with partners in the East, an independent defense grid powered by new technology, free from outside influence. For those accustomed to control, it felt like an earthquake. And the third, a doctrine of strategic autonomy. Beyond resources or defense, it's about narrative. A rejection of economic tutelage, foreign dictates, and conditional aid. Traoré's message is unflinching. Africa's future will not be negotiated behind closed doors. That's why this isn't just politics anymore. It's a turning point, a test of whether sovereignty in its truest form can survive in a world built to suppress it. And as night falls again over Ouagadougou, the same thought returns, whispered between soldiers, students, and farmers alike. They may plan in the shadows, but we guard the dawn.
And so, the countermove begins. Intelligence briefings now warn of 3 primary arenas where retaliation could emerge. The first, infiltration from within, loyal operatives planted deep inside the ranks of the armed forces, ready to fracture unity at the moment of command. The second, covert disruption masked as chaos. Cyber warfare, propaganda, and staged unrest, all crafted to make sovereignty look unstable. And the third, extremist manipulation. Militant actors exploiting disorder to discredit reform and ignite fear. None of this is new. These are the same old playbooks once used against visionaries like Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara, men who, like Traoré, believed Africa could rise without seeking permission. Yet in this struggle lies a strange irony. Every attempt to break Burkina Faso only steals the resolve of its people. In the past months alone, over $180 million in local capital has flowed into state-owned enterprises. Agricultural cooperatives are booming, and trust in public institutions has reached heights unseen in decades. What was designed to isolate Traoré is, instead, binding the nation closer than ever. The question now is no longer if the old order will strike back, but how far it will go to preserve a system built on extraction and submission. And perhaps, more importantly, if Burkina Faso weathers this storm, could it ignite a revolution of sovereignty across the global south? Because this chapter is no longer about one leader's survival, it is about whether an entire continent can rewrite the rules of power itself. History in Burkina Faso has never been written in ink. It has been etched in blood, betrayal, and courage. And no ghost haunts its destiny more deeply than that of October 15, 1987, the day Thomas Sankara, The dreamer who renamed Upper Volta the land of upright people was cut down not by foreign troops, but by a man who once broke bread beside him. His crime was simple yet unforgivable, daring to declare that Africa must feed itself, clothe itself, and think for itself. His punishment? Silence, imposed before his revolution could bloom. That brutal moment branded a warning into every leader's heart: defy the empire, and you will be erased. Today, that same specter circles Ibrahim Traoré. Every intelligence leak, every suspicious act, every whisper of Plan B echoes with the tragedy of 1987. But unlike those before him, Traoré refuses to become a footnote. He has studied the script that destroyed Sankara, the infiltration, misinformation, and betrayal, and is rewriting it line by line. Instead of ruling through loyalty, he's building through institutions, forging what he calls an armor of sovereignty. The security apparatus is being reshaped, decision-making decentralized, and the principles of self-reliance woven into law, education, and economy. He often invokes Sankara, not as a martyr frozen in memory, but as a living warning. In doing so, he signals a profound shift. The age of lone revolutionaries is ending. The next wave of African independence must be built not on fragile heroes, but on systems too resilient to assassinate. Yet the question lingers: will these defenses hold if history once again decides to test the Sahel? For Traoré, survival is no longer about dodging bullets. It's about teaching a nation to endure under siege. That's why his response to Plan B isn't merely defensive, it's transformative. The young president is converting vigilance into resilience, turning every organ of the state, military, civilian, and economic, into part of a self-sustaining survival engine. The army, long manipulated by foreign interests, is undergoing its deepest reforms in generations. Promotions now hinge on transparent merit, intelligence chains are centralized under trusted command, and loyalty audits are routine. This is not paranoia. It is prevention, forged from decades of coups and colonial meddling. But Traoré knows revolutions are not defended by soldiers alone. They are protected by people. Civil society is now intertwined with security. Village leaders contribute to threat assessments, community networks feed intelligence to national systems, and soldiers are trained to defend citizens rather than dominate them. The army is no longer a separate power. It is the people in uniform. Beyond the barracks, the war shifts to economics. Over $600 million from Burkina Faso's gold industry is now being reinvested in schools, clinics, and rural infrastructure. At the same time, strategic ties with BRICS partners and Sahel allies are crafting a regional firewall against outside coercion. This is not just about keeping a leader alive. It's about ensuring a nation can never again be governed by foreign design. Still, one question refuses to fade. Can these reforms endure if pressure turns into siege? The new battlefield isn't lined with tanks. It's drawn in treaties, alliances, and geopolitical tremors shaking Africa's post-colonial order. In the face of growing threats, Traoré now stands at the heart of a new alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a pact between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, united under one uncompromising principle: an attack on one is an attack on all. More than a defense agreement, it is a manifesto of sovereignty. Together, these three nations represent over 1.2 million square miles of land, nearly 90 million people, and mineral wealth worth $1.5 trillion to the global economy. For the first time in decades, Africa isn't asking for approval. It is asserting existence. The ripples are spreading fast. Inside ECOWAS, once the cornerstone of West African cooperation, fractures are appearing. Governments dependent on Western aid call AES destabilizing, but their citizens see something else: hope. From Lagos to Dakar, protesters chant one question: why not us? And across Western capitals, anxiety rises. Leaked memos from Washington, Paris, and Brussels reveal closed-door debates on how to contain the Sahel contagion, because this moment is bigger than three nations. It challenges the very idea that Africa must remain dependent. They thought pressure, isolation, and sabotage would silence him. Instead, Ibrahim Traoré flipped the narrative. His government began exposing what was once hidden. Declassified memos, intercepted communications, and deliberate leaks revealed a coordinated campaign of interference. By reframing the threat as systemic rather than personal, Burkina Faso changed the world's perception. This was not one man under attack. It was an entire continent. And this counteroffensive doesn't stop with press conferences. Across the nation, a civic awakening is taking root. Schools and universities host forums titled Independence 2.0. Public radio explains how billions in resources vanish each year through exploitative contracts. And citizens are learning how foreign aid can be the velvet glove of control. In the streets, murals and songs echo a shared conviction. Sovereignty is not a slogan. It is survival. And so the countercurrent begins. Intelligence circles now warn of 3 key fronts where retaliation could quietly unfold. The first, infiltration from within. Loyal operatives, embedded deep inside the armed forces, waiting for the right moment to fracture unity. The second, covert operations disguised as chaos, from cyber strikes to engineered unrest, each designed to make sovereignty appear unstable. And the third, the weaponization of extremism, militant actors unleashed to sabotage reform and painted as failure. None of these tactics are new. They are echoes from a familiar playbook once used against Patrice Lumumba, against Thomas Sankara, men who, like Traoré, dared to believe that Africa could rise without asking permission. But here lies the paradox. Every attempt to destabilize Burkina Faso only strengthens its core. Over the past months, more than $180 million of domestic capital has flowed back into state industries. Cooperative farms are multiplying. Public trust has reached levels unseen in decades. What was meant to isolate Traoré is instead binding the nation closer together. The question now is not if the old order will strike back, but how far it is willing to go to preserve a world built on extraction and obedience. And if Burkina Faso survives this storm, could it ignite a wider revolution of sovereignty across the global south? Stay with us, because what comes next is no longer one man's test. It's a continent's reckoning. History in Burkina Faso has never been written in comfort. It's carved through betrayal and blood. And no shadow haunts this land more than that of October 15, 1987, the day Thomas Sankara, the man who renamed Upper Volta the land of upright people, was silenced. Not by foreign soldiers, but by someone who once sat beside him. His crime, insisting that Africa must feed, clothe, and free itself. His punishment, silence before his revolution could mature. That tragedy burned a single warning into the minds of every leader who followed. Challenge the empire, and the empire will erase you. It is this ghost that now circles Ibrahim Traoré. Every leak, every mysterious incident, every whisper of Plan B echoes that same betrayal. Yet Traoré refuses to be another martyr. He has studied the script that ended Sankara's dream, the infiltration, the propaganda, the internal fracture, and he's rewriting it from the first line. Loyalty now lies not with men, but with systems. Security is being rebuilt from the ground up. Decentralized, resilient, immune to blackmail. Sovereignty is being coded into law, education, and economy. Traoré often speaks of Sankara not as a saint, but as a signal, a reminder that Africa's revolution must evolve beyond personalities. And this marks a turning point. The age of lone revolutionaries is over. The new fight for African independence will be powered not by icons, but by institutions, too strong to bribe, too rooted to be toppled. But even with these safeguards, a question looms. Can they withstand the same global forces that once buried Sankara's vision? Or is history preparing to test the Sahel once again? Stay with us, because the ghosts of the past are stirring. For Ibrahim Traoré, survival is no longer personal. It's systemic. It's about whether a nation can endure siege without losing its soul. And that's why Burkina Faso's answer to Plan B isn't just defense, it's transformation. The young president is shifting from personal vigilance to institutional permanence, turning every structure, military and civilian, into a framework of survival designed to outlast him. The army, once infiltrated and divided, is now being reforged. Promotions run on merit, not money. Command lines are tightened under trusted leadership. Loyalty audits are routine. Some call it paranoia. But in Africa's history, it's called survival. Traoré also knows that soldiers alone don't defend revolutions. People do. That's why he's bringing civilians into the equation. Communities report threats. Local leaders shape strategy. Soldiers are being trained as guardians, not rulers. The military is no longer an elite. It's the people in uniform. Beyond the battlefield, the economic war rages. Over $600 million in gold revenue, once flowing abroad, now funds roads, schools, and clinics. New pacts with BRICS nations and Sahel allies form a regional firewall, a web of partnerships built on respect, not dependency. This is more than defense, it's rebellion against a world order that feeds on compliance. And yet, the greatest shift comes with the birth of the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, united under one doctrine, an attack on one is an attack on all. Together, they represent over 1 million square miles, 90 million people, and resources worth trillions. For the first time in decades, Africa isn't waiting for permission to defend itself. It's doing it. Across ECOWAS, the tremors are visible. Western capitals call it destabilization, but on the streets of Lagos, Dakar, and Bamako, the people call it awakening. Protesters chant, "Why not us?" Western policymakers scramble to contain what they now call the Sahel contagion. Because if sovereignty spreads, the old hierarchies crumble. They thought pressure would break him. Instead, Ibrahim Traoré flipped the narrative, turning secrecy into spotlight. He made Plan B public not to incite fear, but to expose it. Declassified documents, leaked memos, intercepted communications, all laid bare for the world to see. What was once framed as a rogue regime is now seen as a nation under siege. Burkina Faso stopped whispering and began teaching. Radio programs explain how billions in exports vanish overseas while poverty remains. Universities host open debates called Independence 2.0. The message is clear. Sovereignty begins in the mind before it reaches the state. And now, this revolution is spreading. Across Mali, Niger, even Senegal, young voices chant online, "Africa not for sale, expose the empire." Diplomats from the AES use every summit to remind their peers, if one nation's freedom can be sabotaged, then none are free. Even hesitant governments are rethinking alliances under growing public pressure. Still, Traoré knows the hardest battle is internal. No state can resist if it breaks from within. That's why transparency has become his weapon. $150 million directed to rural projects, public forums with village elders, and open ledgers on government spending. Trust is the new fortress, because when citizens believe in their state, conspiracies fail. As Traoré said, "We do not defend ourselves with fear, we defend ourselves with trust." Those words became doctrine. Over $400 million now funds electrification, healthcare, and agriculture. Approval ratings soar above 80%. Volunteer defense groups multiply by the thousands. This isn't blind devotion, it's earned belief. A bond forged in hardship. And it's that bond that makes regime change nearly impossible. You can topple a man, but not a movement rooted in trust. Even foreign analysts admit, a coup against a president is possible. A coup against a people is not. This is the true shield of legitimacy. It turns a leader into a symbol, a living extension of national pride. And symbols cannot be assassinated. That's why Burkina Faso's example terrifies the old order. Because if trust becomes a weapon, if legitimacy itself becomes deterrence, then the era of externally engineered coups may finally be ending. So the question now echoes across the continent. If the people themselves become the guardians of sovereignty, who could possibly overthrow them? Revolutions are rarely about one man. They are about an idea whose time has come. And that is what's unfolding here. Ibrahim Traoré is not merely surviving. He's building a system designed to outlive him. A fortress made of dignity, not stone. This is more than leadership. It's legacy. It's not just a chapter in Africa's story. It's the turning of the page. So, if you're watching this, remember, history is not being written about Africa anymore. It's being written by Africa. And this time, the pen is finally in its own hands.